To get started, I just wanted to introduce myself and the press briefly, and we can circle back to more of this. But for anyone who doesn't know me, I am Sara Arnold, and I'm the founder, publisher, and editor of June Road Press, which is my absolute passion. It's not all I do in my regular life. I'm a copy editor, and I have been for a long time, but it's honestly all I want to be doing. And just by way of some very quick background, I started the press during the early pandemic, and our first publication season was 2021. And the press publishes just two full-length poetry collections a year in the fall, primarily by women, and all first or second books. And we're here to celebrate the fourth cycle of doing that. And Songs for the Landbound is our seventh book, and it'll be followed in October by our eighth book. And after our main segment, as like sort of an intermission, we're going to hear from some previous press authors, and I'll give you a preview of this, the second book of our fall season that's coming out. But each one is a deeply collaborative process with the author, and it's such a joy and honor for me to be able to do this. I just absolutely love it. And we've been fortunate enough that basically all of the press's books so far have been honored with awards. Two of them were actually finalists for state book awards. And you can find all those details and a lot more at our website, which is just juneroadpress.com. And if you don't follow us on Instagram, that's the primary social media platform that we use. And the handle is just June Road Press. And but you can also find us secondarily at basically all of the others under the same name. And also, we're going to leave plenty of room for questions and open up the conversation later on. So if you have questions about the press generally, and of course, questions for Violeta specifically about the book, about any of the press books, just hang on to those and we'd be more than happy to talk about any aspect of anything we're doing. And I will talk about it all day if somebody lets me. So we'll.
Same. Those of you who have been on Zooms with me know that I can just keep going.
And it's we both just are very passionate about this, so it's fun to talk about it. So but tonight we are here specifically to celebrate Violeta Garcia-Mendoza, who and her amazing new book, which is this. And I want to briefly introduce her for those of you who don't already know her, which I think a lot of this audience does. But Violeta is based in the Pittsburgh area, which is the other side of Pennsylvania from me. I am in the Philadelphia area. It's a big state. And if you're fortunate enough to know Violeta, you know how warm and kind and large-hearted she is. And there's evidence of that, I think, in everything she does, certainly in her writing, in the way she supports fellow poets in the community, especially in relation to her family and all the animals she cares for. She is a caregiver, and she really does have a pack of rescue dogs, and you might see them wander through tonight. It says it in her author bio, and it's like true. So.
And in the acknowledgments.
Yes, yes.
So the dogs are thanked in the
Yeah.
acknowledgement.
The dogs are present here, and you might see a cat float by me. Probably not, but there is a cat. He's the mascot. So, and in addition to being an animal lover, she is a very talented nature photographer, especially of birds. And I'd encourage you to look at her Instagram and her personal website to see more of that. It's gorgeous. And there are literal and figurative birds moving all across her book, not just on the cover, which we can talk about. And I really appreciate that as a fellow bird lover. Well, I had a hand in that as a fellow bird lover. And but before we get to talking about the book itself, Violeta, did you want to jump in and say hi a little bit, give us a little bit more context about yourself?
Yeah, so a lot of you know me. I'm so happy to be here. I honestly, this book would not be possible without like the majority of you here, as far as community support and friendship and just absolute encouragement. So the the enthusiasm that I put out for other poets is definitely something that is very important. Other poets, other artists, is something that's really important to me. Just as far as my personality and getting through the regular day, I need like a certain allotment of art And I have a philosophy of if you see something you love, or if you read something you love, you know, like say something. It's like the if you see something, say something, but instead of something suspicious, it's if you see something that's moving. Um,
I like
but
that. I think of that every time I see something, say something. So,
yeah, see something. Yeah, so I'm big on, DMing people and emailing people if I've read something of theirs that has made a difference. Um, And I have been really, really lucky to get a lot of that love back from my work and support. And not having had an MFA community, the the friendship that I've found in community programs especially has been absolutely transformative. Um, but yes, so aside from that, in my regular life, there are lots of dogs, some of which are roaming around in other squares. My daughters are in one of the squares, and they had one of the dogs up there.
oh, one of the Zoom squares. I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
And just
My
a dog head. That would be really funny.
Yes, yeah, he was watching. My mom has her dog in there too. So if anybody has animals around, please let them make an appearance. That is one of the absolute joys of Zoom. Um, But yeah, aside from the many dogs that we have also fostered a lot of medically fragile dogs. Um, and my kids are very old now. They're very old. They're two are 18, one is 17. But when I was writing these poems, they were not old. And so there's a lot of like the caregiving of young kids, and kids that are like middle school aged. Um, the poems now of the older kids are more going forward. But yeah, so my daily life is mostly caregiving and teaching homeschooling and photography, like Sarah said. Um, and I am delighted to have you here and read some of these poems for you tonight.
And a lot of that is very much present in this book. And by way of introducing the book itself, I'm going to paraphrase Violeta here because I love how she put this in an interview recently. But this book looks at themes of love, nature, and creativity through the lenses of anxiety and wonder. And I really think it does that beautifully. It's grappling with the ways that motherhood and caregiving and midlife and creativity and the natural world and all the fears and anxieties that attach to those things are entangled, and it charts this course through all of that. There's an arc from darkness to light in here that took shape kind of organically, and it's guided largely by the idea of wildness. So finding it, using it as a way to have more awe and wonder in the everyday, in everyday things, in everyday life. And it's just really the kind of collection that I think everyone can appreciate and take something away from. And that's the kind of book that I want to be putting out with this press. And so we wanted to start by giving you a taste of, I wanted to start a taste of the book and Violeta's poetic voice by having her read just the opening poem and one of my favorites from the first section. So what do you say, Violeta? You want to read
Yeah, yeah.
Nocturne and Blank Canvas? And then we'll chat
Yes.
about what else is in here and how this book came to be. So yeah, give us an intro.
Yeah, so if you are somebody who, whenever you go to a bookstore, opens the book up to read the first page, the first paragraph, um, before you decide if that book's for you, in that spirit, I'm going to read the opening poem, which is called Nocturne. And also, it happens to be the perfect time of year for it because it's set in September. Nocturne. Somewhere in September, the river's quiet lapping, the night edged in branch black, the sky ink blue, the first migrating birds. Far below the flyway, land bound, you and I lie flightless as sun warmed stones, curled body to body, looking up. It might have been last century we last spent the night outdoors, but tonight the past becomes us, becomes a tunneling hush. And look, there go 1,000 birds above, steered south by stars or specks of magnetite. Love might be elsewhere otherwise, and still, whatever instinct tells the birds to go, could that same certain force keep me in this place, turned toward you? Hips, wrists, and fingertips. We are no birds, but our lips are soft as wings and move in murmuration. These flights between us, made of more than habit, porch swing, stairway, open door, the years like fingerprints we've left upon each other's bodies, breath, the only part of us Earth's gravity can't hold, night blooming with the scents and senses, magnolia mixed with wood smoke, bouquet of mint, rosemary, thyme, tonight, the garden not yet spent, the two of us entwined. And then the second poem that I will read right now is I wrote this for myself as a little bit of a life raft poem, which is how I think I look at all art as a life raft. There's a lot of flooding and water imagery in the book, and certainly for me, anxiety feels like this 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 water line that kind of rises and falls, but it's always present. So art of various kinds is really a life raft, and creativity is something that I try to broach in different ways throughout the book. Anyway, this is called Blank Canvas, and also I wrote it as an ode to poems that I love that I feel have kept me going in some, difficult times. I have a journal where I've handwritten a lot of them of other people's poems just because that feels so good to just kind of have it go through you. Um, and then I have them so that if anything should befall me, my kids can have them, and it's a different, it's I've always wanted to be a journal keeper and I'm not. So at least it's some sort of record. It's a record of collection, and it's revelatory, I think, through that. Anyway, the poem, Blank Canvas. Think of language as some romance with the unreliable, a rabbit hole down the time-lapsed night inside of you. The muse comes or doesn't through the gods you keep close. Children, iPhone, birdsong, water. It's not enough to stare off, practice gratitude. More than once, a poem has saved your life, and so some sense of life debt haunts you. Maybe the universe exists to be contained, continued in these forms and spirals. So what if you confuse arrivals and departures? You keep your note and map apps open to remind you where you are, here, midlife, midnight, suburbs, Anthropocene replete with crisis forecasts and color-coded calendars. Maybe poems are just complications, and yet you can't resist a little still life lit with grief and wonder.
Thank you. I love those. Um, Especially, yeah, Blank Canvas, I think, just touches on so much. It speaks to a lot of people. And I love how that way of thinking about anxiety, that waterline, I grapple with that a lot. And I just never thought of it in those terms. And there really is a lot of water and flooding and
Yeah.
various ways of water moving through. spaces throughout this collection really brilliantly. So that's something we can come back to. But um, yeah, so jumping off of that, rather than just a straight reading, we thought it might be interesting to pull back the curtain a bit on the making of a book like this with a small press. Now, that's something that varies a lot, but many of you here tonight or listening later are poets yourselves, and it's probably safe to say that everybody's um, watching here likes books and is interested in books. So we thought it might be fun to yeah, talk a little bit about how we went from a submitted manuscript or even preceding that to this finished book with just two people and a really tiny budget. This press is just me. And again, absolute labor of love. And it's a particular way of doing things. And a lot of presses are very small. But in this case, because I am the editorial production and design, it eliminates a lot of those barriers and gaps between the creative process and the production of it. And we dove in this really interesting way that I think is it's somewhat unique. So, what do you think, Violetta? Do you want to start by talking about how the manuscript itself evolved, what sort of home you
Yeah,
hoped to find for it, maybe a bit about submitting, and I can fill in my side of that.
sure, sure. So I started writing after a very, very long pause, which I had just done an interview with Erin Batty Kiefer's Substack on writing after a long pause. Maybe John can link that if anybody wants to look at that.
It's
But
on your book page. So every time
oh,
there's,
perfect.
yeah,
Okay.
I just popped it on there, and that link will be in the chat. So
Okay.
there's a media and mentions section on Violetta's main book page on the press website. And I that's dynamic. I collect every time there's like an interesting interview, something like that. So there is a link to that.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So I had not written anything for a long, long time, like near decade. And then through the pandemic, I started writing again, really out of a necessity from my own, where my own survival, um, my own mental state. So I started writing again, and then started really collecting the poems into originally a chapbook in 2021. And I submitted it as a chapbook, just a couple places. Um, and I got one finalist nod for it as a chapbook. And because I have the personality that I have, which is, I mean, it's not all bad. It's sometimes if you are like a stubborn, pig-headed person, um, it can't always be bad. Sometimes there are good sides of it. So the stubborn sort of pig-headed part decided, let's not make it a chapbook. Let's try to make it a full length, just to see if I could, just to see if I could do it. So I started work on that and continued through 2022, 2023, submitting it. And I had a list of like different different um, things that I wanted in a like I had like a wish list of things I was hoping for in a publisher. And submitting is the absolute worst part of writing for me. I don't mind the blank page. I love revision. Um, what I hate, and I don't even hate this for individual poems. I am inured to the process of like you get some no's from individual poems. They're out. You don't, they're kind of doing their own thing. But for the whole book, um, it it felt like such a piece of me that the submission process for that and how long it takes to hear back and the range of no's that you get was really the absolute worst. So I submitted to as soon as I heard about June Road Press, I put it on my list since it was a newer press, even newer at the time.
Mhm.
Um, but there were so many things that I was looking for that I felt like the press kind of ticked the boxes for. So it quickly rose in my like, I really think it would be a good fit. I submitted at the end of, I think the first time I submitted was tw at the end of 22, right?
Was my first open reading period. We've since started using Submittable, and it'll be bigger this year, and I can talk about that a bit later. But yeah, I believe you were the first open one, the first
Yeah,
season,
the
uh,
first.
season and a half or so. It was a mix of some authors that I had a previous connection to, and so I was choosing one from each open reading period of the first two, and then this past one was two from the open reading period, and that'll continue after this. So yeah, you were finalist in the first one. Mm.
Well, yeah, right. Well, I was apparently a finalist.
Apparently.
I was apparently a finalist, but I misinterpreted I misinterpreted Sarah's very lovely email saying that I was a finalist and her words were like not yet. And I mean
I
she had
mean,
a lot of other words, but the phrase that I remember was not yet. And so I remember it was the only rejection I got for the book. The only rejection I think that I've ever gotten that I cried over. And I'm not a crier unless we're watching some sort of movie with an animal, and then I cry instantly.
that's a lot of
But
movement.
yes, but in regular life, I'm not a crier. So I remember I got the email the first round where I was apparently a finalist, and I went outside to take the dogs out, that's kind of my place where I can not be my best self. Not to the dogs, but just like I feel like I don't have an audience. I'm not consumed with trying to be like a shining example of like a good, like a great role model. So I went outside and I cried. And it was the only one that I cried about. And I don't know if anybody is a big Swiftie in here, a big Taylor Swift fan, but I know my one of my lovely daughters is a Swiftie and is waving to me. Um, but there is in the Taylor Swift documentary, there's a part where she doesn't get any kind of award show nods for Reputation. And there's a clip of her saying, I'm just gonna make a better album. And I froze the screen at that and I took a picture on my phone and I put that in a folder as a reminder. And I was like, I'm just gonna make a better book. I'm just gonna make a better book. And so I used my lovely stubborn pigheadedness to try to make a better book. Although I was a finalist and I just didn't, I just thought Sarah was very lovely and had very like personal warmth in her emails, which she does. I mean, to be fair, you do have that, but I actually was a finalist. So then I I got a bunch of other finalist nods, but I was really holding out for the next reading period, which was the following year in 2023. And I was waiting and waiting, and all of you who've submitted things know that that's such a fun time, um, where you're just like checking your email, a couple hundred times a day. Uh, and Sarah, because she's such a nice person, was like, oh, I'm close, but not yet. Like I haven't made a decision yet. Like, but if you're a finalist anywhere else, let me know. So, I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And meanwhile, Sarah, do you want to talk about what your end of it was?
But yeah, you've really hit on probably the hardest part of doing this is what's so wrenching is knowing that I have to reject the majority of the submissions I get because I can only publish 2 books a year for now. Hopefully that will grow. And I get very attached to a lot of them. I think with this coming reading period, which will be over the same time frame in the winter. So
The
I've
best time of the year, the just
yeah,
nobody has any problem, being
it's time. I feel
finding
like a lot of
distraction.
yeah, a lot of press is open in the
The
fall
weather's
or in the
great.
summer, and I like that it fits our editorial calendar where releasing 2 books in generally like September, October, and then opening the reading period. I've just because it's nice and neat, it's holiday to holiday. I do Thanksgiving to New Year's, so there'll be information about that on the press website and through the mailing list and social media when I've figured out precisely the details of that. But it's grown each year. This is still a very new press. This is the fourth cycle. This will be the second fully open reading period where I'm picking 2 from it. And but yeah, that's the hardest part. Last year it was 200 some submissions, and when I get that down to a finalist selection, it's really hard because I know exactly what you said. It's like this is so much of somebody's life has gone into this that rejecting it is just it's like agonizing. I wish I could publish more. And I think this year I will at least send out a list of the finalists that have made the cut, and I should be involving other press authors in the reading. I wasn't quite ready to logistically do that in the past couple of cycles, but now I think I am. And so that's just a nice way of kind of bringing it full circle. And we have this beautiful sort of sisterhood going of authors, and we're very close. And I love that aspect of it. But yeah, Violeta, I got to know her in the interval between when she submitted in that first period and this last one. And I think with these submissions, I loved the way that the collection was evolving, and I've started to I feel like I have this instinct of sorts that I've started to rely on more with each season, where I'll get a submission and I can envision the full book. Like all of a sudden I can see it as a book, and like I know where it needs to to go, and how to flesh that out. I'd always been skeptical when I'd hear like a novelist or something like a big name say that the characters spoke to me and they I just had to listen and write what came. It wrote itself. I'm like, sure, I'm sure it did. But all of a sudden I like this is the only time in my life where I've felt that bit of a, or you can sit at a piano and just play it. It's like, oh, this book wants to go this way. And I can help shape it into the ultimate form it wants to take to be the best version of itself, the best manifestation of the author's voice and vision. I think Hannah, my great friend and the author of uh, the sort of formative season of the press, this book. She's with us tonight. You'll hear from her in a little bit. She called me a book doula at one point, and I was like, okay, that's cool. Like I can be book doula.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I love that. That's such an honor. But it's, I feel like I had that sense with Violeta's book and with Abbie's, which we'll talk about the second one for this season. This one, I was like that, and that's it's just a special feeling. And so at any rate, once I made this year's selections, the final selections in February, which coincided very closely with AWP this year, which the big writers conference, for those of you who don't know about it or haven't been, that's something that we do every year, and it's a big deal. And it was early this past year. It was in February. And so it coincided with me trying to, respond to these submissions. And, I try not to send just generic rejections. I just feel like that's, up to a point you
I don't think you can. Like I don't think you personally
it
are
hurts.
capable.
It's painful.
I don't think you could do it. I challenge you. I
You
don't think you
challenge
could
me
do it.
to reject. I can't.
I challenge you. I don't think you can.
I mean, maybe to a point, but it's not. It's just, there are too many good. That's gonna be a challenge this year, but I'm excited about it. But once we were into that phase of okay, we're ready to go. I had done a round of developmental edits. I think probably in transit, and then we came back from AWP and and hit the ground running. We started. we just dove in together remotely and transformed this
Yeah,
manuscript basically into the final shape it took in what, like a week, 10
10,
days?
10 days. Yeah.
We
Yeah. And
discovered
I
immediately
remember
that, yeah, we're like we have very similar personalities and approaches. And so we just dove in and we're like, went
it was
in.
very strange. It was very, like, it was wonderful, but it was very strange
Yeah.
because we do have, uh, we do have very, very specifically, we are strong at detail oriented, quick, intuitive kinds of uh, workflow type of things. And I didn't know that about you. And all I knew was, which is true, from the other press authors, was that Sara was lovely to work with. And that was something that I had looked for in when I was looking at where to submit. I was looking for an editor that would actually truly be involved and become a co-shaper and a friend and somebody, I mean, truly how Hannah said it, a book doula. Um, and I read all the other press books, and after I read Mariella and Diana's especially, which were the season that I was the finalist in, I was like, well, Sara was right. The book that I submitted was not at that level yet. So that was a really cool thing that I just want to shout out, that it did end up being motivating, because sometimes you look and you're like, oh, well, why wasn't my work chosen? And I read their books and I was like, I get it. It wasn't ready yet. And their books really helped motivate me, and just everything you read, I think, gets you to another level. And I really think that reading is so vital for so many ways, but that's one of them. Um, but anyway, going back to our crazy whirlwind of edits, um, Sara had post AWP COVID, right? And
That was the wrinkle, is like I actually
yeah, that
managed
was the
to avoid
wrinkle.
COVID until like we came back from that conference. And I was talking to like a couple hundred people, which is not something I do in my regular life. I work from home. I'm kind of a hermit. So cost of doing business. Like, okay, I got COVID promptly. I mean, like right as we got back. So it added this kind of, and it wasn't terrible, but it added this like surreality to it. And I actually think it made me less like inhibited, for lack of a better word, where I was sort of like let go of the copy editor voice and was just like, let's let it flow creatively. And I think that helped. Right.
Yeah, and I at the time, I'm still in my last year of homeschooling my kids, but at that point at that point I was still homeschooling three kids, and trying to do a million things each day, and then working on these developmental edits in like this I was not actually feverish. You were feverish. I was just in like a
I was feeling
sleepless.
like messy.
Yeah, like okay, I'm doing this during the day, and then I'm making dinner, and then after dinner until like midnight, I'm powering through this other stuff, and then I'm getting up early and I'm powering through it. And so it was a very it was like this state of, I really didn't know what day it was.
Yeah,
I was just
it blurred
in.
together in this such a cool way. And we were like,
Yeah,
that Google Doc was it was such a cool space. It was this really dynamic, like we were just in it. And I was
yeah,
just in this fog and you were sleep deprived. And it was really cool. I think we touched on some kind of alchemy there.
yeah.
And but we ended up going from, we were basically ready to move into like, the next phase,
And
which
we added poems too. That was the other thing, which was
yep,
which was wild, that I
organization.
had I had written new poems. And usually you have the poems, like the poems you submit are the poems that are going in. You're not adding stuff after. I think we added like four, five. How
Because
many?
structuring is part of we were really attuned to flow at that point
Yeah,
in an organic way. And it was really fun to see, well, like, how can we arrange this and, amplify what's going on? And so we ultimately ended up with six short sections. So the book is longer than it was initially, and
Which
we
is so funny because I was
adding and
so
adding.
concerned. I was so concerned that I was never going to get like my husband can tell you that I when I was trying to get it to full length and I got it to I got it to 48 pages in my Word document. I was like, well, I've written 48 pages, which is like usually where the cutoff starts for full length. Um, and I'm like, well, I don't think I'll ever write any more poems. I think that's it. And he looked at me and he's very we've been together a long time and he's very accustomed to dealing with me. And he was like, "You'll write another poem by the end of the weekend." And I'm like, "No, I won't. I absolutely won't. These are all the poems I'm ever going to write." And he was right. But so I kept adding to it in the time that it was out on submission. And then Sarah asked, I think you had said, do you happen to have anything else in this feverish state?" And I was like, "Well, I'll put a few things in the Google document." And we ended up taking a whole bunch, which is cool because I have poems that I wrote this year in the book this year, which is just something that's very unusual.
And it covers along, like many of the press books actually that were, out on submission for a long time. You watch children age through them. It captures such a large chunk of the poet's life. And, of course, the poet isn't the same voice as necessarily as in the poem, but it's capturing this slice of time. And I think that's something really special. And, each of these books does that. But yeah, we moved quickly through that. And every book, again, I'm only at book 8, but in each case, the process has been, similar and different. In particular ways. And sometimes the editorial process is really intensive, and sometimes it's lighter. And on the other hand, sometimes the cover uh, just takes longer. We take more iterations, and sometimes it just clicks. And this has been true in different ways for each of the press books so far. It's not a judgment. It's just sort of like how it goes. And I am like following where it goes until it's right. And when it's right, you sort of know. And with Violetta's book, the editorial process was really intensive, like we've described. We were really like in it. We just did it very quickly, but we basically did in like a week and a half what would have normally taken like a month or two.
Yeah,
So
what did
we're
we
just
say that it's like the two of us together are like the labor of a number of people.
hmm hmm But so the cover, which is where I'm going with this, is actually fell into place rather quickly. And after that, and we can, I mean, I guess we have enough time conscious of time, we'll take a little intermission and hear from some of the other press authors, and we'll come back and hear some more of Violetta's. But if people are interested in how the cover came to be, because I am also the cover designer, again, there's no degree of separation here. We just dove in and were like, well, what is this vision? And from the beginning, I knew it should have a bird on the cover. And the original bird, should I show the original bird?
Yeah, yeah, show the original bird and then we
Because
can say
there's a funny story to
why it
the
was
rejection of the original bird. All
which
right.
I really appreciate being able to reject it as part of the very comprehensive developmental edit email, the initial email. Sarah had included this potential cover image, and I did not feel fond of it. And I'll explain why when you show
Can
it.
you
So
see
that
that?
was yeah, I can see it. So that was the mock-up that I got in my original.
Your kids are smiling because I think they know what
They know what's coming. Yes. So,
you're gonna recreate this.
yeah, the problem with this is I knew that it didn't strike me right because I unfortunately can make the face that that bird is making. And my kids and my husband know that they would if that had been the cover, they wouldn't have been able to look at it because they see that face that like I turn and I make like that exact wild-eyed face. I can't do it on command as much as I just do it randomly. But something that really it's not a humorous, it's not like a joke book. It's not limericks. So that was not the right cover for me. But Sarah didn't know me yet. She knew my work, but she didn't know, she had not yet interacted with me in person. And I think you've seen me make that face by now.
Probably. And I think the other authors know, including like especially the ones that are here right now, that I'm like very persuadable. So like I'll throw you out some things and then, if it's not right, it's not right. I'm not offended. We'll get to the right thing. And this was very true with Diana's book, with Abbie's book, which we'll touch on, where,
Dramatic. Like
you
all
brought
the
me.
covers are just that was something that totally drew me. All of your covers.
Yes, which we'll talk about.
Gorgeous.
Abby's, which we're getting to this one. I mean, they're I have so much fun doing this, but it's a very there again dynamic process where it's, we're doing it collaboratively. I want that to be a collaborative process. But it's also, there's a lot of creativity to it, but I'll just like mock up some stuff and see if we can do it. But we're also doing it within constraints, which I think, also often creativity thrives within constraints, right? And our constraint is budget. So the 2022 year with the covers. So Hannah, when we hear from Hannah and Hila, who is not here, but these two books, I actually did. These are artists, the paintings that from artists that we licensed their paintings and we played with them and we got to know them and it was the authors had a connection to them and that was really special, but just budget wise it's just not possible anymore, or at least not right now. So the constraint is like, what can we do in the public domain that's really creative, that's different, that's not just like we're slapping some famous painting on this cover. And I really like texture on a cover, so you'll find that each of the press books has, it's a painting in some way and you're seeing the grain, you're seeing the hand. And I like that in other ways playing through a book. But so the challenge has been for the past two seasons, what can we do that's free, but that's really cool? And for Violetta's, should I show the original piece? The
Yeah.
full.
Yeah.
So again, some of you might have the book already. You can see it on the press website, but it looks like that. So the full, the original piece of art, if you'll uh bear with me while I share this, if it works. There we go. So it's a large piece, and it's actually John James Audubon and another naturalist artist. It's a large oil painting that's in the Smithsonian digital archives, which are so rich. So when I have a book that I've like, part of my process of selection is like, how is this visually going to, again, manifest? And that may be not what we end up with, but I'll start scavenging, and that's really fun to get kind of like feel my way through a book. But you can see that we kind of zoomed in on this, we blew it up, we did some other things with it. I like messing with original pieces. But that was true for the past, so for when we're getting to the second book of this season, Abbie's, it's an old postcard actually from a town right near where the book is largely focused. And we can talk about that more in a bit. This book is out in October, and we're going to have another of these events, so we can talk about it in more detail. But Diana's book, Diana's also here tonight, was also from the Smithsonian Archives, and this is an old sort of. I think this is actually like like painting on leather, and it's a completely different color. And we just started playing with it and zooming way in, and you probably can't see in detail. Again, the press website, you can really see it, but it's got this earthiness that really suits the collection. And Diana helped lead me there. My original idea was just not right, but it got us there. And
It wasn't, did it resemble a face? Did the original
oh, it's
idea
totally different.
resemble
I'd have
a
to dig it
face
up.
that Diana
But
made?
no, in that case, it didn't. Good point. And Mariella is also with us tonight. This is an old botanical illustration from like, I mean, like the Victorian period. Was not the Smithsonian Archives. I found that elsewhere, but it's fun to dig into things like that and see what we can do with it. And this also relates to the collection in this way of, it's like a heart, it's like arterial, it's mapping, it's all these other things that are working on multiple levels. So that's just like a really special part of the process for me. And it happens early on and very collaboratively. And we landed on yours after that first bird with the eye, we got to the second bird, and it kind of flowed from there. And sometimes this takes like dozens of iterations. And I like that process because it makes me better and it helps us kind of triangulate together and find the right thing. And hopefully it will continue to work out that we end up on the right look for the
And
book.
it felt very much right. As much as the first cover did not, it felt too much for me, like looking in a mirror. Not a, like a good with a nice filter. Um, that the second one, it felt so like yes, that yes feeling in your body. Um, I wanted to just before we oh well actually say about the birds because I
I was
wanted
just gonna say, I think we can do the
yeah
book and then we
yeah
can
say about the birds and then I there was one that I wanted to read. There was
You
a
should read
poem
some.
that made me think of all the open windows that we had at the time. I'm going to read Open Tab Cascade, but I'll read it to say about the birds. Yeah.
Well, just while we're talking about design, just
Yeah.
to wrap that up, and we can talk more about this later, but one of the unique things we did with Violetta's book that actually was prompted by something we did for Hannah's book earlier, because it worked well. And I'm all about testing things if they work well and we can do them ourselves to a high enough standard, like let's do it. This is why we are making audiobooks because, and I'll talk about this later too, but that's something that we experimented with 2 seasons ago. The authors were up for it. I was up for it. And, we're able to make these on our own to a high enough standard that I feel like it's worth doing and it really deepens the experience and adds something. So anyway, with Hannah's book, she actually drew these characters that relate to the dividers. It's kind of a little hard to see, but they're these beautiful like calligraphy sort of like characters and for the seasons, and they reproduced pretty well. So for Violetta's book, her daughter Maya actually who is what's starting a program through RISD
Started.
for
Yeah, she started.
is it botanical or natural sciences illustrated.
Natural science. Yeah.
So she drew these beauty. She's here with us tonight.
Yeah.
You're
Mwah.
amazing. So great. So she drew these birds, a series of birds. There were what, 6 of them?
I think so. Yeah.
Actually, they're behind you in
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's right. They're in big. You can if you have the book, you can see them as the section dividers, but
I was
I
going to hold up. So
have some of
we
them.
we shrunk these and used them as the section. So this is in the table of contents, but they're on each of the dividers, and it just adds this kind of hand
Yeah.
made element that's meaningful.
And
But
you that was your idea because we were talking in an email about something else. And I think you asked me what Maya's plans were since she was graduating, and I mentioned that to you. And you said, would she like to draw, try to draw some birds as part of the illustrations?
Mhm.
And so I connected because that part I was out of. So I connected Maya and Sara and you guys went back and forth pretty much directly. Um, but it turned out it was such a beautiful thing and so meaningful to me to have Maya's birds flying throughout.
They're on the press website too. We're using them in other ways when
Yeah.
we can, but it's just I don't know. I feel like we have this opportunity with nothing between us to just like
Try it.
if it works, it works. It's worth a shot. And I love playing that way. And I can, it's so we might as well try. And so it's been really special, like designing the design elements of each of the press books, and I want this to continue to be the case, is so bound up in the book itself, the editorial process and the voice, the tone, and it's fun to be able to do that so collaboratively and so directly. And we do it fast, like we're just in it. There's nobody else to answer to, which is really
Yeah.
nice. That may not always be the case if I can grow the press, but for now, at least for for the near term, it's something that kind of sets us apart. That's really fun. So it's nice that way. Um, so do you want to read actually, before we shift over, I think an interesting interlude might be there's to get into the kind of the content, the meat of Violeta's book. Um, and there's so many motifs that we could tease out and things we can talk about that are moving through this book in very cool ways. But one of the things that struck me from the beginning is there's this really interesting geological vein that runs through. And I'm interested in this, or I recognize this in part because I'm married to a geologist. Some of you met him. He's at AWP a lot. He's tech support tonight. Shout out to John. But there are literal fossils throughout this. There are geodes, but there are also all these interesting metaphorical relics, shards. You have this very interesting fascination throughout with what's preserved, like how to uh, like look at things, what remains. There's this time lapse impulse, sort of photographic moments, and there are literal museums. There are I think there's
Well,
a lot going on.
I have to tell you, that the what started a number of these of the sort of museum natural science, natural history poems was that years and years ago, my kids did a homeschooling class at our local museum, which is the Carnegie Museum, which is wonderful. And it meant that which has really not been the case for most of the homeschooling. Most of the homeschooling has been I'm teaching, I'm teaching all the things. But for this, I think it was just like a 6-week class. They went down to the museum 1 day a week. And while they were at this class, I got to be by myself. I got to be by myself and wandering around the museum, which was the most like that happened so many years ago, and I am still mining those outings because and I say this with a lot of love, but I am never alone. I'm never ever alone. And so this wandering around and just going at my pace, which is very much the pace of like a toddler on a hike, just like stopping and just absorbing things. It was really transformative. Of course, unfortunately, my kids were like, they did not like the class. And they were like, yeah, we don't want to do it next semester. What you're doing is better. So there went that. But I did get these poems, and I can read. Should I read some of the
I'm just
sequence?
thinking in the interest of time, maybe there's a sequence that I particularly love because I love how they flow together.
Mhm.
And then we can have a little intermission and hear from some of the other press authors who might have to leave, and then we can come back and hear some more. But this is the
I'm
beginning.
here all night.
Yeah, I mean, we can stay as long as anybody wants to
Yeah.
stay. We can talk, but to front load this, the second section of the book, and again, there's 6 sections, begins with like a sequence that I just really love. And I think just in the interest of time, skipping to the three, so dear disaster, dear deserter, dear disaster, and moving through fossil record to the diabetes poem. That sequence is really cool. I mean, cool is the wrong word. Cool is not enough. But the first of these poems is like so bound up in a museum. It's situated in a museum, but it's like doing such interesting things with it. And then the second one is short, and it's this collage poem dealing with fossils, but from in sort of ecology, but from using the transcript of the David Attenborough A Life on Our Planet, which is just
Sir
really cool.
David Attenborough. Shout
Yeah.
out to Sir David Attenborough, who we who I think I can say we all know and love. Well, we don't know him, but we feel like we know him.
Like he's a part of this conversation.
Yeah,
And
he's part of our household. We hold him like a like a like an honored member of our household.
exactly. He's a treasure. And the third of this sequence is I think like one of the tent poles of the book that but it's this movement that we sort of landed on from I like the segues between these poems, the flow, the wildness throughout, the sort of the ways of so just moving from that idea of some of this kind of museum cataloging and fossils to wildness. So if you want to read those, and then we'll
Oh,
hear from some of the other authors, then we'll come back to your book.
okay. Dear deserter, dear disaster. Dear deserter, these dioramas remind me of you, especially the dead-eyed, taxidermied shapes that resemble no one's idea of a father. I'd rather not think of you, but this museum was meant to reproduce the once world, evoke a sense of grief-tinged wonder. I pay the ticket price beneath a plaque, bronze paragraph remembering an absent benefactor. There you are among the relics, replicas, the plaster cast facades, sharp draft straying through the hall of architecture. Dear disaster, your grandeure's gone. You're a crumbling statue. In another room, the same 5-second clip repeats, some narrative malfunctioning. If this is not a metaphor, what is? I walk on, my anger toward you glass cased. This is where they keep the arrows, bone, flint, iron tipped, each succession sharper. Time lapsed, life can still surprise you. A man leaves the house one morning, stumbles on an ichthyosaur fossil, stone pressed, full of teeth. Is there some rendering of this where you don't loom extinct? Some visitation when my reflection doesn't catch in the elevator cage and I don't feel particularly sick of you? Let me duck into the pocket dark, the tomb-like gem collection where the quiet rocks remind me eons of fiascos end in splendor. For the geologic record, let me tell you, once you go, you're gone. There's no more time, no room for you. What's left selects its own survival. I'm going to give a thank you real quick to my dogs who normally hate when I read that poem. They get so upset because they know that it's not a poem that's full of love exactly. And so when I was trying to record the audiobook of it, they were very upset. They kept interrupting the recording, the ones that were in here with me, because they could tell that like my vibe was not cheerful. So I'm grateful that the couple that are in here are allowed that. Okay, the next one in that sequence is fossil record. Imagine you can be forgiven. Although your mistakes become many most numerous animals, like loss over multiplying. The truth is life is a series of one-way doors, catastrophic. Time is tragedy. We come to the world we know. We are late. When I was a child, the wilderness sparkled. What we see here is what's left. A line in the rock layers shows we existed. Listen, we must rewild the world yet. And that was literally cut and pasted from the actual transcripts of a life on our planet. One of the things that I wish that I could do would be like actual collage visual art. Uh, and since I don't feel like that is my particular strength, I really love doing collage of just words, phrases using different transcripts as word banks, and then old school cut and pasting. And I think this is because my at some point, I think I as a teenager I was into magnetic poetry, and that was something that like the impulse has stuck with me. But anyway, there are a few collage poems in here, but
There are
that's
a few, and they're great, and they're really creative. Like it's you've created something original out of that bank. So we can come back to some of those. Yeah.
and then the last one in that sequence is The Patient Copes by Wilding Her Type 1 Diabetes. Let the bees abscond as the immune system baffles. Let the pancreas's beta cells pine cone and crumble. Chronic the clouds. Let the blood sugar fluctuate a flock of blackbirds. Dust the blood-stained fingers goldenrod. Let the syringes colander the body into night sky pricked with stars. Glory in the persevering light and mulch the sleepless hours. Let the pumps and CGMs and all the yet to be dreamed up machines alarm into the bird song. Dawn. Thicket the tubing. Let the glass vials clatter into the creaks and tumble soft. Burrow the body down into survival. Cache the endless acorning of numbers. Let a forest open over every scar. And that one just briefly comes out of decades with type 1 diabetes and this preoccupation that was definitely amplified by parenthood, this preoccupation with survival, but something that very much as somebody with a chronic condition that you go to sleep every night and you're kind of hoping for the best. Like I hope I don't have a low blood sugar that the technology doesn't catch. It really brings the preoccupation with survival to the forefront. And I would love to live in the middle of a forest with, like in a Baba Yaga house far away from civilization as possible, but uh, because I love all the nature imagery, but in order to really have my health be in compromise with that, I have to live close to good hospitals just in case. And there's this thread of just in case. And so this poem, I was trying to reconcile all the technology of diabetes and all the completely not poetic stuff in diabetes with this sort of cyclical long view of survival and connecting that to the rewilding and the geologic record and things like that.
No, and it succeeds at that so brilliantly. I really feel like that's another poem in this book that just has stood out to me from the beginning, where I come back to this tentpole idea, but it's another one of these like standards in there. It's really special, and I think so much of your experience is like distilled into that in such an unusual way that sort of draws on everything else that the book is doing. And yeah, I love it. I think it's really representative of what this book is about. So yeah, that's all in section 2 in here, and this thing is it's really incredible. And I think what we might do now is just sort of pause and have a bit of an intermission and hear from I believe we only have 3 of the other press authors with us tonight, and I know Diana has to leave a little early, so I wanted to make sure we hear from them to give you a taste of some of the books from the past couple seasons. And if I wanted to, we'll come back and hear some more about Violeta's book and hear some more
And
poems.
play
Maybe
a
play a
very
game.
strange game.
Anyone who wants to
Giveaways.
around, yes, and we'll incorporate some giveaways into that. So definitely stick around. But I want to lead off with talking about the second book that's coming out this season. Abbie Kiefer's Certain Shelter is it's so amazing. This season is well, every press book is my favorite book. I don't have kids, so I can imagine that, you don't choose favorites among your children, but I feel that way about all these books. So, so Abbie's book comes out October 22nd. And again, stay tuned if you're following the press on anything, because we will make announcements about we'll probably be doing another virtual event like this in lieu of an in-person launch party, and you can hear more from Abbie and about her book. But it's remarkable. Abbie's manuscript really leapt out at me during this winter reading period that I was talking about, and I just couldn't get it out of my brain in a totally welcome way. When a song that you love gets stuck in your brain, it's just like, oh, this. And she's a poet to watch. So every poem of Abbie's is like quietly astounding. And I just feel so lucky to be publishing her first book, because I know she's going to have many. And as a very happy bonus, she's an extraordinary person. And it's been a joy to work with her so closely to make this book. Like, it's been so much fun. And this collection is deeply embedded in New England. And I'm originally a New Englander. And so it clicked with me that way too, um, in a very specific way, in like place-based way, but also in its sensibility. And it brilliantly layers personal and local and collective histories, and it's threaded through with these perfect references to popular culture. And it's a way of it does those things in a way of processing the loss of a parent and approaching how to parent, how to go on, how to find solace after that kind of loss. It's also grappling with the question of what lasts, like many of us are, like Violeta's book is, the idea of relics, preservation, renewal, and it really amounts to something both relatable and profound. It's hard to do it justice like this, but I hope you'll check it out if you're intrigued by this preview. But again, it's out in October, and you can find much more about it on the press website. And there's a whole book page there that we can link to in the chat. But Abbie, if you're up for it, if you want to just give us a little teaser, maybe read a couple of poems, if you want to give a little more context than that, we can give us a preview.
Violeta, thanks for letting me be part of this. It's so nice to hear you read your poems. I was lucky enough to read the book a couple months ago, so I knew it was fantastic, but I think it's really special to hear a poet give voice to their work. So thanks. It's been really lovely. I'm just going to read three poems from the book. This first one is called "After She Dies, My Mom Keeps Getting Mail," and it was I learned about grief, that it just follows you everywhere. And so this poem was kind of grappling with that. After she dies, my mom keeps getting mail. Her last issue of Eating Well, unless she acts immediately. Inside, a 3-piece saute with mint and Aleppo pepper. I read the instructions 5 times, commit them to memory. The Red Cross needs my mom to save babies with malaria and girls taken into slavery and people starving in a city gnarled by earthquake. Is it any surprise the ground heaves at its seams? I sign a check with loops so loose, my name could be anyone's. This won't last forever, the sale flyer insists. Lavoie Family Furniture is going out of business. These kind-faced Lavoies, I want to believe them, but tell me how they can be so sure. 4 generations gathered around a must-move table. And the second one I'm going to read is something I wrote about, not about, but thinking of an Anne Sexton poem. She has a poem called "The Truth the Dead Know," and it is in part about the death of her parents. And she has this line in it that I love. It just says, "It is June. I am tired of being brave." And I don't know, I think about it all the time. I'm always feeling I'm tired of being brave a lot. This poem is somewhat about that. It's called "It's June Now." It's June now, and the tomato plant, recent seedling, has fringed itself heavy red. It's June now, so I've cut back the moss phlox, dead-headed the lilacs, let every crisped cluster settle where it fell. Because it's June, now the living things need tending, more tending than before. It's June now, my son half done with all his childhood summers. Month when I will turn 41, though I hardly marked May or the year of 40. The feeling of 35, its hard insistence on potential. It's June, now it's not. A day clear and clement as that one a few Junes back. Even dull with grief, I stopped to shuck my sweater in the hospital lot. It's June for now, and I am wrenching the spigot, letting the kids stir mud in the driveway while I read a blousy book, transparent protagonist, and too many adjectives. Parting pages with one hand, a Pabst in the other, and I don't feel bad, no, about the blousiness, about my lack of doing, and the once lilacs studding the mud. It's June, now listen. The golden sweet is unsparing. Come take some tomatoes. How could I ever make use of them all? This last one I'm going to read is part of a series. I've got quite a few poems about TV shows. I found when I was like in the hardest part of feeling sad, I just wasn't sleeping, and so I get up and I like wanted to watch Bob Ross and like This Old House. Like so, those shows sometimes found their way into the book. So this one's about Bewitched. On Bewitched, they recast Gladys Kravitz when actress Alice Pierce dies at 48 of ovarian cancer. Gladys, the nosy neighbor, could have been grating, but Alice plays her a little bewildered, and you warm to that. Terminal, they told Alice, though she kept it quiet, wanted to make a show. Come the end of season 2, you see she's sinking. Wardrobe pads her waning frame in sweaters. Gladys's wig rides her face like a baleful cloud. Even so, Alice keeps earning her laughs. Samantha's up to something strange, and only Gladys notices. Bewildered Gladys, watching for magic. The show's witches, who live forever, call all the humans mortals. Call us what we are. Thanks.
Abbie, thank you so much. I love this book. It's Juno is one of like, my favorite poems ever now. And it just this is really special. So stay tuned, and this is coming out in a couple weeks, and you can again find lots more about it on the press website, and we put the description and the link in the chat. But it's available for pre-order, and it's just it's amazing. It's an incredible book. So thank you. So before you have to go, if you have time, Diana, I would love to hear from you. So Diana Whitney is the author of this incredible collection from last October, very October collection, Dark Beds. And it's just like steeped in Vermont, and it's like earthy and sensual and gorgeous, and like it's amazing. This is another one that leapt out to me in the submission period. And this is Diana's second collection, and it's remarkable.
And it has the best epigraph, I think.
Oh, it does
It's
have a
one of
good
my favorite
Yeah.
epigraphs ever.
Yeah. Laura Kazishki, I'm going to mispronounce that. It's just motherhood, that grand opera staged in a cave, which really suits the book. So Diana, if you're up for it, you want to read a couple, and if you're welcome to read new stuff too. Diana's been working on an incredible manuscript that she's yeah, she can tease for us as well.
Wow, it's so great to be here and I never get tired of book birth stories. So Um, just the origin stories. So thanks, everyone. I think I also, Violetta, really relate to that, a book can take so long that the poems you wrote when your children were little, like now they're late teens when your book comes out. So that was my story too with Dark Buds. So I think maybe I'll read kind of a seasonal poem from the first section of Dark Buds. We're not quite there yet, but we're going. Instructions for November. Put up the storms, cut down the corn, shear the dead things at their root. Nicotiana, blue aconite, the forgotten onions I found in cold dirt, scrabbling for the last of them, their shedding skins and yellow flesh, soft to the touch, but still good for soup. Our girl, dressed as a black ghoul, danced the kitchen, hissing threats, lost a milk tooth, her fifth seed pearl, corn kernel rot from the wet red gap. Now she's licking the emptiness, leering at the dark spaces, offering a skeletal glove to greet us as we toss the rotten lanterns on the compost, turn back the clocks, lock the hens in at dusk. The coyote left strewn feathers, dry scat, no trace of blood. We lost only 2, 10 more to protect. They hop from the coop dumb with trust, pecking at ice water with white dragon tongues, warm eggs flush in the nesting box. Night begins now at 4 o'clock. Smoky tunnel to the season of lead. Let's make the same promises over again. Shut out the lights. Come up to bed. So, yeah, some of these poems are so long ago that probably the seven-year-old who is maybe a Dementor for Halloween is now in college. So slow writing. You know about slow food. I think I'm an aficionado of slow writing. So I'm going to read one more, and I am going to read one because Sarah said we could from my new manuscript, which is in that agonizing stage of, I really related to that of just doing the submissions and waiting and trying not to think and trying to keep the faith. So this is the first, the new manuscript's called Girl Trouble. And this is the first poem. And it'll be the last one I'll read, and then I'd love to hear from our other poets. Watching Thelma and Louise during lockdown with my daughters. Do they get caught? C asks, wanting to know the end from the beginning. Do they make it to Mexico? Do they go to jail? Do they get shot by cops and cruisers and choppers? Just wait, I say. I've already messed up. I forgot the scene in the parking lot, the predator at the honky-tonk bar slapping Thelma in the face, shoving her belly down on the hood of his truck, the click of his belt unbuckling. It was 1991. I hadn't been raped yet. I kept the thrill of the open road, Brad Pitt strutting in cowboy jeans, Louise fierce and bold in her gritty bandana, blowing up an 18-wheeler. That was power, I thought back then. Do they make it? C asks again. She says the women are stupid. They should switch cars, hop a train, stop calling home to Arkansas. She is sure she could survive if given the chance. A is quiet. Oh, I know, she breathes softly as they near the Grand Canyon. At the end, the green car floats above the earth. Tears trace my cheeks, and I take the girls' hands. Thelma and Louise are holding hands too. This is the only way, I try to explain. They have no choice, not in this world. It's the movies, after all. The Thunderbirds suspended forever in Arizona sky, a magic feminist ride to the afterlife, while we're stuck here on the ground, on the couch, in the house, where it's dark, dark, dark all around, the future pressed hard against the windows. Thank you.
So good. I've only heard, I think, two, you read two from this new collection, but amazing, or this new manuscript. What a project. I love Diana's work, and this book is amazing. So really check it out if you like what you heard. And it's there's a lot more on the press website. Each book has a full page with audio clips and blurbs and all sorts of media from, in this case, the past year. And Diana is really worth following. You should subscribe to her newsletter because it's amazing. She's such a good writer. Oh my gosh. Uh, um, Everybody's amazing, and so is Mariella. So I thought we'd move backward and talk about this book, which came out the same season as Diana's. So these were the twins from last year. Diana's was October, and Mariella's was September. And Mariella's book was a finalist for the Colorado State Book Awards in what that was just June, and one of three in poetry. And she got to go to this lovely ceremony, and it's a real honor. And it also won a gold medal in the Ippy Awards, which is for independently published books in the poetry category. So it won that category. So really special book. And yeah, Mariella, if you want to read whatever you'd like to read, uh, give us a taste of your book.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I'm so happy for you, Violeta. I'm so
Mm.
happy to be here with your community and celebrating such a big thing. So I'm just proud and just like very humbled and happy to be here. Um, so yes, I have my book and I'm having a hard time choosing. And I think hearing some of Abbie's too, I know your book touches on grief a lot, and the latter part of my book does too. So then I had some that I was thinking, but I'm gonna start first and then I'll decide which is the second one I'm gonna read. But this is actually one of my favorites. I don't think is a favorite for a lot of folks, but that's okay because it's one of mine. I think I know the favorites and I read them a lot at reading, so I'll read this one. It's called Last Breath. There is no fantasy left. I locked it away when words stopped coming, when there was no warmth anymore, when I stopped asking questions. Why won't you stay? I dreamt of you in an all-white room, a single chair meant to hold you captive, and my arms. But you dodged left, then right, and slipped right through me. I felt your soul's heat on my shoulder. I knew I could never keep you. Knew it from the start when I was scared to move. When we lay in the field that one time, when I worried that if my elbow inched toward the sky a little more, you would escape, having found me out. Touched your arm hairs once on purpose, stretched your sweater up your forearm to freely feel the brown blonde whiffs on my fingertips. Then my thumb and index pinched skin as if to claim you there. So I brought your sleeve back down. You spoke fast and low, your voice stretching out to a whisper that ran from me. You became a silence I couldn't grasp, a breath I still can't hold. And then you kept on moving. That's one of mine. And then this one I was torn which one to read. So I'm going to read it. This one's called Album, and it has three parts. 1. It's hard not to miss the memory of the time when the thing you know was new. You never know what'll stick like that, what your brain will decide to keep fixed as a photograph, until you smell the lavender in the field and the coffee cart along the way, and feel the dampness on your neck because it's summer now. I miss when things weren't memories yet, when I didn't worry about capturing you because you were there, and that was enough not to need to. I didn't think I'd need to, but here I am, damply ransacking my brain to find that one time we grabbed crepes and you got sick after, or that day you didn't meet me by the pond. So I sat and counted until I knew you'd never come. How do I get that pre-memory back? The moment before the photo snap, before you were there and then you weren't. 2. I wish I'd saved just one live image. I grabbed my phone instinctively to find you. When I remember, I got rid of them all. Didn't think physical reminders would be good for me. But now I'm left with only memory to work with, and memory works in incomplete ways anyway. Here I am, recreating blurry images, trying to add pixels to those pictures that live in the archive under your name. I can't quite make you out. For some reason, I saved a video where you're the side character. It's something, but this moving image isn't you. You've changed. This movement, your gait, the way your arms swing, your hair, your style, I don't think that's you at all. So what am I really looking at here? 3. Every day she feels a little farther away. I bought a frame to house a photo of her, smiling, drinking something sweet. When I light my candle near her and clean smudges from the glass that contains her, I greet her and smile back, because maybe she can see me. I find old photos on my phone where she is smiling, kind of like living, and she feels close for 2 seconds before she's gone again. This is what time does. Convinces me that people are here and gone at the same time. This is how time works. It moves. It moves all the time.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Mariella. Thank you. Those are really good choices. I love the juxtaposition of this like photographic impulse against like so much dream imagery in your book. There's so much like you're doing with dreams, and yet it's, you can pair it with these really precise images that are captured, and like you move back and forth between those two phases like so beautifully. Mariella's book is like actually all of these. I think we've made an audiobook version in each case, and Mariella's is amazing. Like you check it out, listen to a preview. It's incredible. I don't know how she did it. She recorded it like just like it's amazing. Um, Deserves these accolades. It's an incredible collection. So I'm so glad you could be with us, Mariella. Um,
Thank you. I had a podcast room too. That kind of helped.
it's
Just putting that out
great.
there.
I love it. It's really worth listening to. Anyway, so we have one more press author with us tonight. I think Diane couldn't make it, but Hannah is here, and um, we'll go back to the 2022 season. And I held this book up earlier. These are just two of the stickers. There are like six of them. Five? I want to say five. Hannah's book really racked up the accolades in 2022, 2023. Hannah's a dear friend and one of the sort of foundational press authors, and her book is really something. It's very hard to describe and pin down, and it's just it moves through the seasons. It's located in the desert Southwest, but it's also everywhere with the wind, and it's extraordinary. And Hannah herself is extraordinary. And if she's up for reading a couple of poems from this, it would be a treat. Hannah, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah, and congrats, Violeta. I'm just so overjoyed about your book being in the world, and Abbie, I'm so excited for yours as well. So congratulations to you both, and thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you're amazing. So I think I'm just going to share one poem out of my book, and then a new one that I wrote, if that's okay. My like Diana, I actually haven't been writing that many. We were talking a little bit recently, and yeah, we were both talking about dry periods, right? And how we just sometimes it's not the time, it's not the season. And I have definitely been in one of those seasons where I've been writing very much. And so to be with you all tonight, putting some words into the air and just really tasting them on our tongues and just enjoying this time together is so nourishing for me. So thank you. I'm going to read the first poem out of my book. It's called Desert, which seems appropriate for the fact that most of my poems in this book were written in the desert. And the alternate title was kenosis, which is the Greek word for emptying. And the epigraph on it is life. It's a quote by Plotinus, and it's life, the flight of the alone to the alone. Before I went out, I'd heard said in me what was beyond saying. One day I became the wind, all sand and memory. When I struggle to explain this, I point at the yucca flower and scorpion weed, or to the cheat grass and the pale boy lying in it, next to his sister with roots in her arms his. A mouth roundly gestures toward the truck they left in flames, a cottonwood coming up through its smashed-in window, and an and finding nothing to touch with its scrutiny, Silence folds itself away like a ledger in coats of burnished sandstone. No one will find me on my wrists and knees beside the night bloomers, lulled to sleeping by their scent, to be awakened by a sudden bang, their whites unfurling. When I was the wind, my thirst became clouds, became rain and sheer rust, wanting nothing except the sky's changing hands. Shelter has no words for this. Nobody does. So this is kind of like a before and after thing because I think one of the things I realize about my book is I kind of go back and look at it again, with the experience of maybe how many years has it been? Yeah, only a couple of years, but I think my life has been marked by a fair amount of despair, and in some ways despair has become kind of vogue in our culture, the emo, like, oh, life sucks and woe is me and I'm going to write a really dark poem about it. So yeah, and I did that for a while and I realized, it doesn't have to stay there. Our work can evolve in a new direction, and I've been spending, instead of writing poems, I've been kind of steeped in this world of religion and theology, which frankly has been really, really scary because God is kind of a dirty word in our culture, or a scary word, and people don't really talk about, our experience of the divine, or and it seems like kind of unmapped and really tough territory to navigate because of fundamentalism and some of these things that we see in the news. And so, hanging out with a bunch of priests and monks and nuns at a monastery, I've been discovering the idea of what God might be, and this poem came out of that, and it's called Metanoia, and it's the Greek word. I seem to like Greek words. It's the Greek word for turnaround, also conversion. So, and this is kind of me grappling with my idea of God. In short, I was afraid. The light was too beautiful, the days too transparent. I refused to claim what had not been proven, and considered this to be some form of humility. I said, doubt keeps me clean, even as I filled the gaps with wet sand, gravid with refusal. Doubt enriched my life, I thought, except I was always dying. All I wanted was to be present and surrender, but to what and to whom and for whatever reason. The dying had been full of itself, a dying that had no love in it. And so my death finally confessed to love. I need you in order to matter. When the light broke through, it gave me my giving up and sent me a fearsome wind I could neither feel nor smell nor hear. I am the soaring you've always wished for, it said to me, your river into the sea. I am the completion of every dying. I am the name that knows your name. Thank you all for having me tonight. And it's really, really great to be part of this. So yeah, so much fun.
Anna, thank you. I love hearing new poems from, these poets that I know your books so well, but it's just it just adds this extra layer, and things continue, and it's just beautiful to see and to be part of that. And but they're, these poets will forever be part of the press family, and it's a small group, but it'll grow. And it's been a joy to get to know these poets, and to continue to be part of that process. So thank you. And there are a couple of other books that we've put out that are just as extraordinary. So I hope you'll check out the press website. There's also Keela Ratzabi's There Are Still Woods, and Diane Lil Wilder's Leap 30 are really special as well. Ego poetry, and this was like the first season, and they're they're both also amazing. So check that out. And to sweeten that a bit, for everyone here, we'll incorporate some giveaways into our next stretch as we shift back to Violeta. But in case anyone needs to leave, we have two promo codes you can use at the press website. One is just all caps songs will give you free shipping on any book. So if you already have Violeta's book, or you're curious about one of these other collections that you heard about, this is a good chance to give it a shot. And they're really beautiful objects as well. Like, we put a lot of care and love into the making of every aspect of them, the covers, the typography, the paper. They're really special things. And the other, and maybe we can put this in the chat. Perfect. The other is if just for everyone here, for anyone listening, and made it this far, you can use the promo code LISTEN on the press website for a free download of one of the audiobooks. It'll also work for we made ebooks for each of these as well. So the shop on the press website will have all of those. You can check it out, and if you add it to your cart and use that promo code, it'll make it free. So if you want to hear one of the poets read one of these, highly recommend it. And we made all those audiobooks ourselves, and it's been really fun. So so that was our intermission. Not that the next part has to be that long, but we can stick around for as long as anyone would like to. I want to leave some time for Q&A, but Violetta, if you want to, do you want to attempt this game?
Yeah, I think we could try.
For a couple
And then-
rounds.
Yeah, we'll do a couple rounds. And I think so I'll explain it and then we'll see how it goes. This is one of a variety of different games that especially my daughters humor me with. We could entertain ourselves and each other in a cardboard box. But we came up with this game that they come up with a word, a random word, and they tell it to me, and I have to relate it to a book on a bookshelf, or else I lose the point. So and it'll be like a random word, like they'll try to stump me with recently it was Falklands, and I could actually find a book on the bookshelf that had Falklands in it. But clock was one that almost stumped me because although I have a lot of clocks in my own poems, I couldn't think of books on my bookshelf that had clocks. Anyway, so as a fun attempt, I don't know if we're calling this like Stump the Poet, but
We
if
never came up with a name. We were like, oh, we can name this game. And they were
we
like,
just yeah, we call it the
game.
bookshelf game, but if anybody wants to come up with a random word, and so the way it'll work, instead of relating it to a book on a bookshelf, I have to relate it to one of the poems. And if I can't, then you can win something from the shop, the Root, the press shop.
Which basically, and if we don't have any of those winners, we can just draw a
If
couple.
nobody stumps me.
But if you already have Violetta's book, it basically any book from the press shop, plus we have some cute little magnets, and
Yeah.
we'll send you that after I'll be in touch by email. So
But
that's
just as in thinking of the way we do this for the bookshelf is we have books in our house about so many random things. And I worked in over the long years of writing this, so many random things into the poems. So let's see how this goes. If anybody wants to put a random word in the chat, we can
start it off if nobody has an idea.
Yeah, I think I see some typing. I'm a little afraid.
I mean, anything like, I mean, we already covered like museums are obvious, but like saltines or
Yeah.
is there a
I-
saltines poem?
there is armchair.
Or Jenny,
Okay. Yay. Okay. Armchair. I think we could I could read one of the TV poems. Oh my goodness, everybody.
Good job, guys.
Okay, good job. Good job. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh,
All right, so pick.
I've created a monster. Okay. All right. So okay, Jenny wrote armchair. Jenny was first, I think, right? Okay. So I'm going to read. I think I can
You
relate.
know.
Okay, I'm going to take Shelby and Jenny, who wrote potato and armchair, and I'm going to combine those into my poem Still Life with Television, that's about the bear, the TV show The Bear, because that has cooking. They did potatoes. I watched that sitting on an armchair. I
So
think
this
I
is,
can have
you can
credit.
stretch these to
I think,
encompass
yeah,
a little
okay.
wiggle room.
I'll
It's a
read the poem and you tell me if it works. Let me find it. Where's the poem?
oh,
What
I can
section is it in? Okay. Hold on. Here it's coming, I think.
the book is at the
Oh, I
bottom.
found it. I found it. Okay. Still life with television too, after the bear. After dinner, think of cages, claustrophobia, seconds, second acts, the way love complicates ambition. Something about the color palette says nostalgia, anesthesia. In another life, the mother picks one, front or back of the house, instead of both, though both have their own grind and grieving. Would she feel more like herself, smiling and spinning plates, or smoking, screaming? Every second counts, sounds too much like enjoy every minute. Coping is a delicate ecosystem, and TV's a secret room. The screen's a cave wall, shadows, fire. The mother's a sharpened knife with kitchen blues. Chaos Menu asks, what if you chose different ingredients to recapture that old feeling? What if you let yourself go bold with intuition? The mother can't resist this redemption arc's charisma. Yes, chef. During that scene in season 2, she sits up, sings along. She's this whole plot line, flawed, low lit, standby hero, labor of 1,000 spoons. Okay, so did that count? Are we going to count that for potatoes and armchair, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I don't
Let's
know who
see.
the arbiter of this is, but if it's me, then yeah, sure.
Okay, we'll count that. Um, I'm looking through mesmerized. I
Abbie.
don't know. No, chartreuse. Oh, chartreuse. I can do for chartreuse. I can
Okay.
do that one. Okay.
Good job,
Mesmer
Hannah.
mesmerized, I don't. So Catherine, write down that
Okay.
that Catherine got me.
Okay.
Um,
Can
okay,
keep
but for
on the
chartreuse, I'm gonna give my mom a shout out because she has a chartreuse colored bucket, which is her favorite bucket.
bucket.
Bucket. Yeah, like a bucket,
Favorite bucket.
like a mopping bucket.
Oh, okay.
He brought it from Spain. It's like the very best mopping bucket because the oh, what is this called in English? The alcachofa, the it's like the wringer out is
Like with a
it
mom.
yeah, but it's a very special mopping bucket. It's chartreuse in color.
Potatoes.
Yeah, okay, so it's chartreuse in color, and the part where you wring out the mop is extraordinary.
Okay.
So I'm
You got
going to
both?
connect that. Yes, it is an heirloom. My husband's chiming in. My kids are like, everybody knows about this chartreuse bucket. So
Okay.
I'll give a shout out to my mom and I'll read the housekeeping secrets poem.
Good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see how this game works now. There's like you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
lose.
Okay. So chartreuse did not stump me, but let me find.
That's a good one. I'll
Okay.
see if I can find it faster. I
All right,
probably
let's see. You might be able to.
um oh,
Oh, oh.
you
Okay.
got
Found it. Yep. Okay.
you have a lot of poems in here.
I do. Okay. Housekeeping secrets. In the empty museum of a good life where I grew up, everything was pristine, laid ready for a man who might or might not return any time. I remember absence like order, its quiet, its quality of echoes, white walls, uncluttered, curated tables, my mother emptying herself into me, into housework, into being presentable, doors open, sheets pressed, windows polished, spotless, no matter the angle of the sun. Don't I remember bird after bird breaking against that glass? I sat with the magpies, waiting for them to die or revive, honeysuckle vining nearby. My father never came back. Now my husband and I keep a certain must splendor. Windows, fingerprints smudged, piles of books and papers, a house full of children and pets and their detritus, proof of life. Their rooms we just shut. And that was also brought to you by the chartreuse bucket, the infamous chartreuse bucket.
The gift that keeps on giving or something.
Yeah. Well, but see, I don't have it in my possession. That's why we have the must splendor, because it's not to the
Yeah.
level of the chartreuse bucket.
Gotcha. All right,
Um,
well, that deepened my understanding of that poem. And I knew it pretty well.
okay. Um, Going down, Azalea. My daughter is so Maya wrote Azalea, and I don't have anything about azaleas. I have hydrangeas, but I don't have azaleas. I don't know. Was that that was Mahandra. Was that Mahandra that did that? Okay.
Well, they
Well,
also have the book, so they can win a different book, but
well, they've won the honor because they've never stumped me in the actual bookshelf game. So I'll have to make them a crown. They have never stumped me. Um,
you guys are
and
good at this.
let's see. I'm looking.
Can you
I'm
do origami?
Can I do origami?
It's tough.
Oh, oh, Robin did origami, and Robin does beautiful origami. Let me think if I can do origami. Oh, I can. I can do something related to origami because I'm going to do the haibun, which is a Japanese form, like origami.
Oh, that's good. I was just talking about this the other day. Yeah, that's a cool poem. And that's a Pennsylvania poem. So there's a couple in
Yes.
here that are again, Violetta's the only Pennsylvania author, fellow Pennsylvanian, different parts of Pennsylvania. But I like that there's a regional inflection or at least a place sensibility in each of these collections. And there's a couple poems in here that do deal a little bit more explicit with Pennsylvania. And this is one very Pittsburgh. I love it.
Which is funny because I feel Pennsylvania now, but I'm not originally.
Mm,
I'm only half Pennsylvanian.
me too.
But I will read I will find it. Okay. So, Robin, I think we'll connect it. Origami being a Japanese art form to haibun being a Japanese poetic form.
You want to explain the form briefly? Because I
Yeah.
wasn't familiar with it. It's prose poem plus a
Yeah,
haiku.
prose poem followed by a haiku, often used as sort of a travel kind of poem. And I think Basho has a bunch of very, very famous ones. So in that spirit,
Mm.
Pittsburgh haibun. You love and want to love only the gradient greens, the oak trees, red buds, dogwoods, the low cost of living, how close it sets you to stadiums, state parks, museums, colleges, hospitals. But every year here bends you to its lesser charms, rusting bridges, sandstone cliffs blasted into highways, potholed roads, the many nicknamed neighborhoods built up like stacked transparencies, spectral haze of coal and steel and smoke, barons, ironworkers, miners, ghosts. Anywhere you are, a choice of rivers, Allegheny, Monongahela, Ohio. You'll teach your mouth how to pronounce these words. You'll learn the wildlife, the woods, the birds, feel gentler toward the common grackle. This place befits a noisy, iridescent bird. You'll fall in half love with the grayest cold. Decades later, say it's winter and your eyes are tired, dry. The secret to soft focus. Drive late enough at night and there's no badly merging traffic. The streetlights, semaphores, headlights awake and echoing some dot dash code of color, time, and light. Say you're beside the one you love, and still his steel eyes breath catch you, as well as any after-tunnel skyline. Take a photograph, light polluted night, sky caught in three rivers, faint stars as press of time.
That's a great one. And that's a good selection of extras through the game. And we can do some more of that, but we can also open it up to questions and maybe come back to this just in the interest of time, since it's almost 9, if anyone needs to leave. But
Write down Christia though, because Christia, I did not do carousel.
okay,
I
Christy.
don't think I can, so Christia stumped me too.
All right.
But I could write, maybe I will use these as words to prompt new poems. But Christia stumped me as well.
It's a fun fun way to try to. You're good at this. I hadn't thought about like making those leaps. That's the origami one was smart. So if anyone has questions for me, for Violeta, for any of the, well, we've a couple of the poets who read had to hop off, but anything we can chat about, and maybe we can pull another giveaway winner from the list, just randomize it, and I can put that in the chat just since we only had 2, but I will follow up with Catherine and Christy, and you can pick a book from the press website. But really, if anyone would like to chat about anything specifically, or has questions, Violeta can also talk about more from the book, or just read a couple more poems.
I'm happy to talk as much as anybody is interested in hearing, truly.
So, so feel free to unmute and jump in or put something in the chat, or
I've got one for you girls.
all right. Who do we have?
I was curious about the Google Doc.
Oh, it's Jenny. Hi.
Hey. You guys mentioned it when you were talking about the process of putting the book together, and I'm curious about like the iterations of things. Was it more about like tracking changes or making comments like back and forth between you? How important was like version control, or was it more about like having a dialogue about the poems?
It's a good logistical question. We like systems and order.
As do I.
I know. Yeah, that's a good question. This is something I think we've landed on, well, by necessity, because I am not where my poets are based. And the press was a pandemic project. So even the first season with Diane Wilder's book, who's a friend, we were near each other, but we had to basically do this outside or on Zoom in 2021 or earlier than that, because it was, we just couldn't in person. But Violeta, we I think we mostly did it. I mean, it was track changes and comments. We had a lot of marginalia, like
Oh my gosh.
long discourse in comments, right? And then we would kind of clear them and do iterations, and it would evolve from there. But if you could go back through the history of that document, my goodness.
Oh my goodness. It was a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
It was, I think as I remember it, it was a lot of just margin comments.
Mhm.
And some of it was, sort of what you would expect, as far as like, this is perhaps not the best preposition. Or like punctuation kind of questions. And other things were more thematic, which then we pulled for reordering some things. And some of them were just like I think it descended to like telling parts of our like life stories. Like it was very, very sturdy. It was a very sturdy discussion. I mean, we probably had
Sturdy.
hundreds of different comments that we would go through. And then we would have like the track changes and accept. But I think a lot of it was just back and forth in the margins, right? It wasn't it more, at least percentage wise, more of that than of the track changes, like, you know, you know, like play with this, or um although we did play with the line breaks a lot. I played well.
Later on, yeah, you were very good at relineating.
Yes,
That was
well,
unexpected talent, or I was just like,
yes,
some of that was actually again working within constraints. You've got a trim size and you have to actually work in practical terms with the margins. And
yeah,
so you had some long lines where when you're trying to balance the page, you want to be conscious of the line breaks being poetic and being serving the poem, but also not fitting with the rest of the collection. And sometimes that's really tricky. Sometimes that will dictate the trim size. But I really like, all the press books so far are the standard 8.5 by 5.5, and it works really well with most poems. But that drove a few of our relineating decisions, and it actually, I think, strengthened some of the poems.
yes,
You
yeah.
just
And
went in and like did it, and I was like, damn, that's really good.
well, I had taken this was so random. Sometimes you take, as a poet, you take workshops and you're not sure, you know, how much it's going to come in handy, like that particular thing. I had taken years before a 1 day one day lineation workshop with Dilruba Ahmed. And I signed up for it because she's a great teacher and I had worked with her. And so we did a lot of really interesting lineation exercises, and mostly I thought it helped me as a reader rather than like practically. But it turned out that when some of my really, really long lines, which I had originally, which, you know, if you are submitting to an online journal, it's not a problem. But for a book, you have to make a decision as to how that's going to show up, whether it's going to keep on running or it's going to re-break. So Sara told me, as Sara sometimes does, she's like, just think about this. She very lovingly says, like, just think about this. Take some time to think about this. And I, like, later that day, and this has happened with so many things, I'm like, I thought about it and I solved it. So I had this sleep deprived lineation class powered relineating spree for some of the poems that really ended up being quite fun, and I really recommend that.
It was a way to kind of like sharpen and reinvigorate some of the
It was
poems.
so much fun. It
Yeah,
was
it was.
really, really fun
You
to
would
do.
just like jump in and be like, "I did it," and it's like, that's even better than it was. Like A
Yeah,
plus. We're very motivated by assignments and grades, aren't we? We were just like definitely those kids in high
too
school.
much. Too much.
Um,
But in the margins, Sara would sometimes give me emoji stickers, which I found very, very nice.
I'm glad those were motivating. My marginalia tends to be like a mix of very practical and very like effusive, and I don't know, but it worked for us, and it was also again very dynamic. So we'd be like, clearing those notifications and layering in new ones as we worked on iterations of poems and then move things around. And it was yeah, it was intense, but it got the job done and then some. I mean, and again, COVID haze. So for me, it was like a little loopy, but I think that enhanced it in ways that are probably hard to replicate at this point, but it served us well. Um, but yeah, Google Docs. It was a tool that we needed at the time, and I think it worked well for this, and that's what I've been using throughout, really, for this kind of manuscript phase with the other collections, and I think I'll continue to do that. I mean, in an ideal world, we could do some of this in real time or in
It would
person.
have taken us so much longer the way we talk. It would
I
have taken us so much longer.
You and I, in particular, yeah, we
Yeah.
would have derailed ourselves and been like on and off, a tangent
It
for.
never would have been 10 days. It would have been like 10 months.
But when we're focused, we're very efficient.
Yes.
And that was a heavy lift, but it was really cool. So I think yeah, good question, Jenny. That was, logistics meets creativity, and that's kind of what we're doing here. So and ideally the logistics serves the creativity and makes something that's like, greater than the sum of its parts. And I think we've achieved that here. So songs for Lit and Bound. So yeah, I realize that it's a little past 9. So if anybody needs to jump off, feel free. But if you'd like to stick around, we're happy to keep chatting really about anything. You can tell that we're chatty people. So
Laura gave me a really great recommendation in the chat that I was very happy to have Robin Schiff's information desk. So if anybody wants to give me reading recommendations
yeah,
or ask,
also
you know,
useful.
ask for others, I that is something that I love, love, love to do too.
Oh, and before we sort of segue into, some semblance of an after party where we're just hanging out, John did randomize the names of the people who are here, and I will send so Robin and Christia. I will, if I'm pronouncing that right. I hope I am. I'll follow up by email, and just any
And
book.
Catherine too.
Yes, I have Catherine and Christy. There's a Christy and a Chris.
Christia. And then did you randomize to Robin? Is that what you said?
Yes, Robin and
Okay.
Christia.
Okay, got it.
Right, up here, and hi. So I will. Yes, got it. I will follow up with all of you and send you books and of your choosing, and I hope you enjoy them. And I'm just really grateful that all of you came. And we are recording this, and we'll put it on the press as a YouTube channel. There's only two. We did two previous virtual events like this where you can hear actually some of the authors from earlier reading from their books at length. From last year, we did a solstice reading and a fall reading, and we'll be doing more of them. And as they accumulate, I'll keep putting them on the press YouTube channel. And you can get to that from any page of the press website. At the top, the menu, there's links to all those the other platforms. It'll just take you there. There's not a whole lot there because we're tiny and we're just doing a few of these a year, but we will keep doing them. And like I said, we'll hopefully be doing one for Abbie's in October, and maybe another solstice reading because that was a lot of fun in December, and we'll gather the rest of the press authors. But yeah, so my trusty assistant has put in the chat that if you are interested in chatting about anything else or you want to get in touch with me, there's an email address there for the press that just comes to me. And you can also sign up for the mailing list, which is just occasional, just updates that are fun at any page of the press website. And we'll have more information about the reading period as that gets closer after October, after we launch the next book. But it'll probably be from Thanksgiving to New Year's again, sort of winter reading period, that whole stretch. You can submit a full-length manuscript if you have one, and I'd love to read it. And again, hopefully some of the other press authors will be helping me read this year, and we'll have 2 more amazing books this time next year. And in the meantime, if you have Violetta's book or you bought it, it should be on its way to you, and I hope you love it. And it's really special. So I'm just so glad you could join us tonight for this, celebrating this. And if you'd like to stick around longer, we'd be happy to keep chatting. So I just don't want to keep anybody past bedtime. I know on the East Coast here it's 9 past 9. But yeah, we'll keep hanging out. So thank you everyone for being here. And yeah, it's been really a pleasure to do this tonight.